But once you change your mindset, you can do anything. Anybody can accomplish anything. If you can see it, you can believe it, you can hold it. Police officers are one-dimensional reality. You know, they only think in that term, in that theme. Again, like I said, I was guilty of it myself. I thought I knew it all. I really did. I thought I knew it all because everybody calls you when they need help, when they need information, when they need the worst possible trauma in their life. Who are they calling? They're calling me. So if I've got the answers for everything, right? So I know everything. I'm not calling anybody else. They're calling me. So it's hard not to get that belief, right? And Bob taught me, he humbled me right away. He said, you don't know what you don't know. There's so much more out there. And that's why I really jumped into into that more than anything. And Bob was always there for me anytime I wanted to call him. And
I love how you brought things full circle here, Joe, because your first interaction with Bob was him showing up with the mop and the buck. And I thought, well, I wonder if he was foreshadowing something about your future that he saw that you hadn't seen yet, getting into the cleaning business. And it's also just very coincidental, but today is the second conversation I'm having about Bob Proctor, because I was on a podcast earlier with Christina Wise, who's been on our program, and she was also mentored by Bob. And I only had the pleasure to see and meet him once in Edmonton and see him present. And one thing that really stood out for me is the presence that he had. And he was a tall man, but he had a booming voice, and he could just really command a whole room in almost nanoseconds. And he had just a magnetism that would draw you towards him that was really uncanny.
You know, I saw with Bob, knowing him personally, that once he took the stage, he was somebody totally different. I saw him in the comforts of his home. I've, been away with him. He's so different. He's so quiet, even when he may come into a room where it might be an event for him, he stands back and is very quiet. He watches, he listens, and I've picked up on that. There's a time to talk, and then there's a time to listen. And Bob, as much as a great speaker he is, he's even a better listener. Yeah, he's amazing, man. I was having a conversation not too long ago with Linda, his wife, and that's the name Coffee with Bob, or the name Coffee with Bob came from, is that I told Linda, I said, every morning I have coffee with Bob, even though he's passed and he's gone. I do my meditation every morning. I have my coffee with Bob, and Bob is there. I feel his presence. I come up with some of my ideas that I want to do, and I tell Linda about them. And she goes, that's something Bob talks about. That sounds like Bob. That's what he said. That's what, and I go, well, I'm getting it from him. This is all this inspiration that I get is my quiet time in the morning when I'm having coffee with Bob. And that's the name of my book.
And it's a great book. I shared with Joe after reading it. It's a light read. Like it really doesn't take much longer than 2 hours to get through. If you're a reader like me who gets through a chapter and just takes time to think about my thinking. And chapter 12 is one of my favorites that I shared with Joe. And the title of that chapter is Building Resilience and Perseverance. And so I'll leave it up to our viewers and listeners to read that. I would encourage you to really take some time with that particular chapter. It's incredible. And if you think of everything that you've learned and that has really resonated with you, Joe, in having Bob, mentor you really through into this new chapter of your life, how do his teachings show up in how you run your business today?
Well, it's the biggest lesson I learned from him, and you're in business, too. It's persistence.
Yeah,
it's continue doing what's necessary and keep at it. You're going to run into problems, going to run into barriers. If you have a small goal, you'll tend to retreat back into your comfort zone. But if you've got big goals from the start and you've got your plan in place, you go for it. Not to say you don't change your plan. You can change the plan, change the direction, get around that barrier, but don't change that goal. Don't change that big, scary goal. You keep going at it every day. You got to be persistent. That's what's going to drive you every day. And I think that is the most important lesson that I think I've ever learned from Bob, because he was, it didn't matter. Throw problems at him. Didn't matter. He would study the problem. Every problem's got a solution. He would write the problem on his piece of paper. He'd put it on his desk, and then he'd go and stand on the other side and look at it, think about the problem. And then he'd move over around the desk and sit back down, because there's always a solution and it will come to you. But you can't say, well, I'm not going to do anything. You've got to make a decision. The problem won't go away. So that really helped me, because there was times, I've had some really bad times in business. The product wasn't going right. The label come out wrong. And it's just like, why do I bother? Right? It does. It comes out in a second, but then I hear Bob's voice. Persistence. Stop it. Change your thoughts immediately. And then you get right back at it again.
I love that. It to see that, you came through that career in policing and into this new chapter and thinking like an entrepreneur, and just overall, I think in many aspects, just changing the way that you think. And one of our mentors, Dan Sullivan, who founded Strategic Coach, he always expresses to us that the problem is never the problem. The problem is how you think about the problem. And so it's quite interesting that you've got Bob Proctor, Dan Sullivan, our late mentor, the late R. Nelson Nash. One of his 5 golden rules is to rethink your thinking. And he would always open a talk with everything begins with the way that you think. And so to see that, just blossoming in you, Joe, is amazing, because, my family has a history in law enforcement. And I've seen with family how that profession can really change somebody too, especially when you're most often dealing with the worst in people, and that can create an emotional moat around somebody where they develop a rigidness to them that it just amplifies over time. And I've witnessed that and seen that firsthand. And so to see you come through into this new chapter, it was amazing reconnecting with you online and starting to chat again. And but I just want to commend you for that, because it's not easy for people when they think that they've arrived in knowledge. Like you said, I felt like I already knew everything. And our late mentor, Nelson, would say that there's no such thing. There's no such thing as having arrived in knowledge. There's always something new to learn.
We have a ton more amazing conversations and great clips just like this if you go right here. Or if you want to watch the rest of this conversation, the full episode, click right here.